It was a regular Tuesday, and I was sitting in my small London apartment, feeling exhausted. The sun shone through the window, but it didn't do much to lighten my mood. I had just finished my morning classes and was ready to focus on the last part of my college studies. Then my phone buzzed and I saw my father's name on the screen. "Hey, honey," he said, his tone annoyingly casual. "I hope you're doing well. Just wanted to let you know I took care of some things." "What things?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Oh, you didn't need it anyway," he said, as if he was discussing an old couch that was taking up space. "I drained your college fund." I felt the floor drop beneath me. All those late nights studying, the summer jobs, the scholarships, I had poured everything into that fund and he had just stolen it. I couldn't comprehend how someone could be so callous. "How much is left?" I stammered. "Left? None of it, honey," he replied. "I had some debts to clear up, but you're smart. You'll figure something out." "Figure something out?" I echoed, my voice steadier than I felt. His words felt like a slap. Did he even understand what he had done? I hung up, staring blankly at the wall, images of my future swirling chaotically in my mind. I took a deep breath and opened my laptop. First things first, I needed to check the account balances. As the screen flickered to life, I could feel my stomach twist. I logged in and scrolled through the transactions, each one a reminder of my father's betrayal. Withdrawals, small enough to go unnoticed at first, lined the page like a series of gut punches. "What a jerk," I muttered as I scrolled through the history. Every single dollar was gone. I glanced at my phone, more messages from him. "Don't stress about the money," he wrote. "Maybe this is a sign you should take a break from school." I couldn't believe the dismissiveness. Instead of supporting me, he was trying to spin this into an opportunity for me to abandon my dreams. I felt a surge of anger rush through me. I grabbed a pen and a notebook, jotting down everything I needed to do: gather bank statements, document every withdrawal, and start looking into financial aid options. I was done letting him dictate my future. I could still salvage this. As I stared at my notes, I could feel the weight of the betrayal lifting just a little. I had to be practical. I had to take control of my life, even if it meant facing down the man who should have been my biggest supporter. I wasn't just going to sit back and let him destroy all my hard work. I was going to fight back and reclaim what was rightfully mine. As I sat at my desk, the weight of my father's betrayal hung heavily in the air. It wasn't just the stolen money that hurt, it was the memories flooding back, childhood moments that now felt tainted. I recalled the birthdays when I would excitedly open my gifts, only to find him asking me if he could borrow my birthday money. "Just for a little while," he'd say, flashing a charming smile that convinced me I'd see it again. But I never did. That pattern of borrowing without repayment was etched into my mind. It was always the same story. "I'll pay you back, I promise." I should have known better. I should have seen that he never intended to return what he took. Each time I thought it was a simple favor, but in hindsight it was just another instance of him manipulating me for his benefit. And then there were the times he tried to steer my life in directions I didn't want. "You can always marry rich if college doesn't work out," he'd say when I come home with good grades. Or how he'd press me to take out additional student loans, assuring me he would help with the payments later, all while casually downplaying the value of my education. Looking back, it was clear. He saw me as a backup plan, another way to secure his own comfort. I had enough. Fueled by a mix of anger and determination, I set to work on building my case. I pushed the memories aside and focused on what I needed to do. I opened a folder on my laptop and started gathering financial documents. I printed out bank statements, highlighting each withdrawal my father had made. It was a heartbreaking sight, but I needed to see it all laid out before me. Next, I reached out for help. I called my university's financial aid office, my heart racing as I explained my situation. Counselor on the other end listened carefully. "You're not alone in this," she assured me. "We can help you find options." Hearing those words felt like a lifeline. I wasn't just a victim, I could take action. I also reached out to friends for support. My roommate Emma was there to lend an ear whenever I needed to vent. "You deserve better than this," she said fiercely one evening as we sat on our worn couch, sharing takeout. Her encouragement fueled my resolve. On top of that, I consulted with a legal aid service. They explained my rights and what steps I could take. I penned down every piece of advice, building a plan for how to confront my father and reclaim my future. With each document I gathered, I felt more empowered. This wasn't just about money, it was about standing up for myself and taking charge of my life. I was no longer the little girl he could manipulate. I was a young woman ready to fight back. Just when I thought I was alone in this battle, my grandmother stepped in. She had always been the backbone of our family, a fierce woman with a no-nonsense attitude. When I finally mustered the courage to share my story with her, her eyes widened with disbelief. "I knew he had borrowed money, but I had no idea it was this bad," she muttered, her voice tight with anger. That weekend, we called a family meeting. Everyone gathered in my grandmother's cozy living room, the air thick with tension. My father wasn't invited. We agreed that his presence would only cloud the truth. As we sat around the old oak table, I shared my collection of documents, recounting how my father had manipulated each of us in various ways. My mother sat stoically, her expression unreadable, while my aunt tapped her fingers nervously on the table. In that space filled with whispered shock and anger, plans began to form. Together, we brainstormed legal and financial strategies. My Aunt Sarah, a lawyer, offered to help. "We can hold him accountable," she said, her voice steady. "He needs to face the consequences of his actions." Aunt Sarah sprang into action, her expertise illuminating the path forward. She drafted a demand letter, outlining the stolen funds and what he owed me. "This isn't just about money, it's about accountability," she insisted, her fierce determination igniting a new fire within me. As the letter took shape, my mother, who had often been the peacemaker, finally found her voice. "I can't keep pretending everything is okay," she admitted, her hands trembling. "It's time I filed for divorce." The weight of her words hung in the air, a promise of liberation not just for her but for me as well. The thought of a life free of my father's manipulation felt like fresh air filling my lungs. The night before we sent the letter, I couldn't sleep. I felt a mix of dread and exhilaration. Would he deny everything? Would he lash out? When my father finally received the demand letter, it was like watching a storm roll in. He called me immediately, trying to downplay the situation as if it were just a misunderstanding. "Come on, Vanessa. It's not like I was stealing from you," he said, his tone dripping with insincerity. "You're exaggerating. I just needed some help." I felt my blood boil. "This isn't help, Dad. You took what was mine." "You've always taken," I shot back, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. He dialed up the manipulation. "You're my daughter, you should forgive me," he pleaded, trying to guilt-trip me into submission. "You know how hard things have been for me." But my grandmother wasn't having it. She stood up, fierce and unwavering. "You don't get to toy with her feelings anymore. You've caused enough damage." Her words were sharp, cutting through his excuses like a knife. For the first time, I felt the support of my family solidifying around me, a bulwark against his attempts to regain control. That was the moment I knew I wasn't just fighting for myself, I was fighting for all of us. Truth was out, and there was no turning back. As the divorce proceedings unfolded, the truth about my father's financial deceit was laid bare like a bad reality show. My mother and Aunt Sarah worked tirelessly to sift through the chaos, and what they discovered shocked everyone. Hidden assets scattered across various accounts, gambling debts that spiraled into the tens of thousands, and a history of financial fraud that painted an alarming picture of who he truly was. During the court hearings, the judge's reaction to the stolen college fund was particularly striking. "You took advantage of your daughter's trust," he said, his voice laced with disbelief. "This is not just a family matter, it's a crime." Hearing those words felt surreal. I wasn't just a victim. I was part of a case that highlighted a pattern of manipulation and betrayal that had to be addressed. With the legal storm still raging, I found a glimmer of hope in the form of emergency funding from my university. They offered me a flexible payment plan that allowed me to continue my education while navigating this turbulent period. I felt a sense of relief wash over me. School was my sanctuary, and I wanted to keep my focus on my future. My grandmother became my steadfast ally in this recovery process. She not only provided emotional support but also guided me in taking control of my personal finances. We set up a budget and reviewed my spending habits together. "You need to be aware of where every penny goes," she advised, her wisdom shining through. It was empowering to feel like I was reclaiming my financial independence piece by piece. As the divorce proceedings continued, my cousins and other relatives began to rally around us, eager to expose their own experiences with my father's financial betrayals. One cousin recalled how he had convinced her to let him manage her savings, only to lose it all in a bad investment. Another shared stories of how he had borrowed from family members without a thought of repayment. Together, we formed a united front, determined to secure the savings of our younger relatives. We set up a family fund that would protect their money, making sure they wouldn't fall victim to his manipulation. This experience had shifted the family dynamics significantly. No longer were we tiptoeing around my father's whims. We were a stronger, closer-knit family. Support flowed freely, and the walls of silence that had once allowed his behavior to fester began to crumble. With every step forward, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The betrayal had hurt, but it also ignited a fire within me, a desire for transparency, accountability, and ultimately, healing. Together, we were rewriting our family narrative. As the divorce proceedings dragged on, the legal and financial penalties began to tighten around my father like a noose. My mother, backed by Aunt Sarah, launched legal actions against him for unpaid debts, and other relatives joined in, each with their own stories of betrayal. It was incredible to witness a collective stand against his manipulative ways, a unified front that left him with fewer allies than ever before. Desperate to maintain his lavish lifestyle, my father resorted to shady tactics. He tried to sell off assets quickly, often under market value, hoping to pocket some cash before it could be seized. I remember one day he called me, attempting to appear nonchalant. "You know, Vanessa, I'm thinking of moving to a nicer place. A fresh start." But his desperation was evident in the way his voice trembled. Graduation day arrived, and as I walked across the stage, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride wash over me. My heart raced as I accepted my diploma, knowing my journey was just beginning. I glanced around the crowd, searching for familiar faces. My mother and grandmother beamed with pride, but my father's absence loomed large. It felt bittersweet yet liberating. This was my achievement, not his. Shortly after graduation, I landed a top job in London, an opportunity one had only dreamed of. The city was vibrant, filled with possibilities, and I embraced every moment. With each new project I undertook, I felt my independence blossom. I was no longer just Vanessa, the victim. I was a professional making my mark, building a life free from his shadow. However, my father wasn't done yet. He began sending insincere messages, trying to worm his way back into my life. "I miss you, Vanessa. Can we talk? I've changed." But I saw right through his manipulative tactics. He even took to social media, posting photos of happier times as if to rewrite our family history. "Family first," he captioned one post, the irony almost laughable given everything that had transpired. As these attempts escalated, the family discussions grew more intense. "We can't let him back in," my mother firmly stated during one of our gatherings. "We've worked too hard to create boundaries, and so we set final boundaries, clear and unwavering." If he wanted to make amends, it would have to be with genuine accountability, and we all agreed that we were not ready to trust him again. In many ways, his desperate attempts only strengthened our resolve. We were a family reclaiming our narrative, and together we were ready to forge ahead into a future without his manipulation. As I settled into my new life in London, I began to understand that true independence extends far beyond financial freedom. It was about making choices that reflected my values, surrounding myself with supportive people, and crafting a future on my own terms. Each decision, from choosing my apartment to fostering friendships, felt like a step away from the chaos of my past. Betrayal had been a painful teacher, but it imparted invaluable lessons in resilience. I learned to trust my instincts, recognize red flags, and build a support system grounded in honesty and mutual respect. Each challenge I faced, whether it was tackling a demanding project at work or navigating new relationships, was infused with a newfound strength. I realized that it was okay to lean on others for help, and that vulnerability could be a source of empowerment. With every passing day, my resolve to never be controlled again solidified. I embraced my autonomy, making it clear that my life was mine to navigate. I set boundaries in both my personal and professional life, ensuring I surrounded myself with individuals who respected and uplifted me. This journey wasn't just about escaping the shadows of my father's manipulation, it was about stepping into my own light. Ultimately, success morphed into something far deeper than wealth or status. It became about authenticity, connection, and the ability to shape my destiny. I was no longer defined by my past. Instead, I was building a future rich with purpose and promise. And that, I realized, was the truest form of success. Thank you for watching. Please kindly support us by liking this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this.